Humans exist in an objective world, yet we simultaneously live in the parallel reality of our subjective experiences of this world. In this narrative layer of reality, we make symbols that represent facets of this objective world, and then use these symbols to exchange information with other subjective viewpoints in order to get closer to rightly perceiving objective reality. This is essentially map making. We make a word, which is a map for its definition, and the definition is a map to an idea. Likewise, the letters or grapheme of a word are maps for the sounds they represent. As humans, we are subjectively able to abstract, which is to say, build a map of the complexity around us into a usable tool to collaborate with other subjective experiences. The word quote-unquote tree is not the tree. It is simply a map we can use to find it. This has infinite benefits when the subjective individuals are working from a similar goal. The issue in our modern materialist world is we live in duplicitous and contradictory tension within these two basic compartments of reality. One of these realities, the material, explains what something is, while the other, the narrative layer, describes what something means. This relatively recent understanding of the material world as a cold, dead, and meaningless thing that our narratives breathe the warm life of meaning into has struck a schism in our collective psyche and sparked such disastrous consequences we are only now beginning to realize as they come into view. This separation of our narrative reality from our physical reality has allowed us to abstract out archetypal or essential structures of narrative as distinct from their physical or idiosyncratic manifestations. This is helpful and necessary in our comprehension of reality. However, in the modern world, as Nietzsche so poignantly understood, we've severed the branches of our material world so fundamentally from the root of their meaning that we have completely hamstrung our ability to comprehend a cohesive where or why we are. To the modern mind, meaning is fundamentally an intellectual pursuit, and the intellect is by all accounts a floating ghost out in some utterly immaterial realm. Further, because we do not collectively share a map of values, save for the value that everyone is free to build their own values, we exist in a necessary relativism that clouds our ability to use symbols. Language needs to be homogeneous to be shared. If every individual is speaking their own idiosyncratic language, of which they personally defined each vocabulary word, no one could understand one another, and thus no one could share their personal map of reality to be scrutinized and added to the whole. The practical results of this, which I will delve into further in a moment, can be very well understood through the example of a person whose mind has decoupled the process of eating from the nutrition eating provides. We've seen extreme examples of this decoupling, allowing confused folks to eat objects like cloth or toilet paper under their reframing of these things as food, which may stabilize the internal logic of their own narrative, but hinders them from engaging in the objective world in a manner that would lead to their benefit. If they only eat toilet paper, though they call it food, they will die. The modern mind is able to fantastically exist in the abstract layer of narrative so fully as never before seen in history. We are free to paint the external world in whatever way we wish from the subjective vantage of our own minds, fueled by the magic and illusory substance something like the internet provides. When you create a divergent personal reality, or put simply, when you lie, you need to bend narratives to fit your purposes. This network of narrative only works if all subjective agents within the narrative agree. This is aptly illustrated in the fable, The Emperor's New Clothes. The naked emperor is only able to continue his farce so long as everyone plays along. Farces like this are narratives that run at variance with objective reality, and these lies exist and only can exist within the narrative layer of human interactions, like a web spun between the minds of subjective experiencers. The grandest network of these interactions is found today in the internet. And while the internet can be intensely useful for map making, it is also a magic capable of proliferating and buttressing lies to an extent never before seen in history. Each individual can now magically shape their identity in the minds of others, running PR and propaganda campaigns with terrifying efficiency. Everyone is now a witch or a wizard king of their own personal fiefdom, free to bend the truth among their constituency of followers in whatever manner they see fit. The power of magic tricks only exists in the perceptions of others, and thus, to modern magicians, or put bluntly, every modern individual, the power of the internet is far too tempting, for it is a massive web of human perception, a floating narrative layer that can put frames on top of objective reality. And while all lies have a shelf life, like a wave running out of steam upon the shore, some waves are large, and the crashing of these waves can be catastrophic. Likewise, some lies, while false, can be in reality extremely dangerous. The emperor might not actually have clothes on, but for so long as the mob indulges in the lie, they are acting like he does. However, calling a tiger a kitty cat does not make the tiger less dangerous, but it does, however, make you worse at surviving it. You can close your eyes and plug your ears and say it's not happening, but the truth is, you are bound by the rules of objective reality. On a global and cultural level, we are currently suffering the consequences of this disunity. We're like the metaphor of the 5 blind men and the elephant, if each had been propagandized into how our individual interpretation is the only valid one. Thus, the process of revealing reality becomes simply a battle for frame. We've cut our teleological Yggdrasil into such unrecognizable parts that we can no longer distinguish the pieces that make up the trunk from the roots or the branches. And it is in this state of quote-unquote free play, as Derrida called it, that we are free to lose our minds and our lives as we call the quote-unquote bark of this tree its fruit, and then starve when our naming of a thing does not gnostically imbue the thing with nutrition. Part of the paradox found in the totalitarian desire to render all unexplored territories as known and controlled is the dissatisfaction the human who has this control will feel. This conflict between the desire for safety and the desire for exploration and potentially meaning causes what I will argue are some extremely problematic and unhealthy behaviors, both in individuals and in societies at large. One of these problematic counterbalances that manifests is the redefining of words, signs, symbols, etc. to reinforce the security and comfort of the known, while alleviating the unquenchable desire for exploration and meaning. The image that comes to mind to me here is the trope of the millennial mommy GF Instagram influencer. She finds a stable, simple, and controllable man to fund her Instagram career, as she posts thirst traps to strangers, like a domesticated house cat staring longingly out the window, imagining what life could have been like as a tiger. Her prioritization of safety came at the cost of truth. I'm going to deconstruct and analyze this archetype in a later video, but the point here is that the desire for safety apart from meaning and truth, when fulfilled, leads the heart to long for the danger of meaning. After all, if you can dupe a partner into committing to you, then they're dupable. And if they're dupable, you don't respect them. And if you don't respect them, you'll seek out one you do. For strangers, to her mind, speak more for truth than her husband does.